Today, 4,000 sacked. What would you do? Hi and welcome back to Dad's channel here in 2023. I hope you're doing really well and I hope the year is treating you good so far. We're only 4 days in, but I hope you're going to have a great year ahead. In today's video, we're going to look at what's happening with Sunak, the Tories and the unions and the current strikes that are going on. So without further ado, let's have a look. Rishi Sunak says that the unions are being unreasonable. Sunak wants to stand up to the unions and anybody else that doesn't or wants to negotiate is weak. And he wonders why the unions are going on strike.
What's weak, Mr. Speaker, is he's not strong enough to stand up to the union.
And Sunak seemed rather, smug and smarmy to me. Clearly the government want the strikes to go ahead.
They made no attempt to get these strikes off. They didn't even request us to take the strikes off. In fact, I think they wanted the strikes to happen.
And in the hope that the rest of the public will apply pressure. Divide and conquer, divide the workers, worker against worker. Let's just take a quick look at something that Keir Starmer had to say at the same Prime Minister's question time.
Scrap the non-dom status and use the money to bring through the next generation of doctors and nurses.
And of course it's true in Sunak's case. His wife, being fabulously rich, has non-dom status, has applied for non-dom status, and she has to pay for it as well. £30,000 a year, I believe it costs for non-dom status. But then Akshata Murty, or Mrs. Sunak, perhaps as she sometimes refers to herself as, does have an income of £11.5 million from dividends in Indian IT. So, £30,000 isn't much, really, is it? 11.5 million, 30,000. Must be about the same in tax, surely. And so it must be. Sunak keeps telling us that there's no endless pit of money that the government can access. But then if you don't tax people, you won't have any money. But it's strange. They always remember to tax the poor. This is a good one. So the privatised companies have to pay Network Rail an amount of money so that they can put their rolling stock on the lines. But they only have to pay them a certain amount, and it's not enough to cover everything. So who pays the rest? The government. Wait, stop. The government. When people keep saying the government, that's you and me, the taxpayers. So that means it's a subsidy for the privatised companies. The privatised companies provide no money for updating infrastructure. They pay no money for the upkeep of the rolling stock because that's leased. And let's face it, people don't have much of a choice, do they? You turn up at your train station and whoever owns your local franchise, that's who you're going to be on the train with. It's not as if you've got an option to turn up 10 minutes later and use a different company because they're better and or cheaper. And if it all goes wrong, well, they can just walk away. Who gets to pick up the mess and pay the price? I'm not going to say the government, it's the taxpayer, it's you and me. According to the RMT union bosses, the median salary for one of their workers is around £31,000 to £32,000. And that's because they don't really include the train drivers that much because there's very few of them actually on strike at the moment, and their union is ASLEF, not RMT. The RMT also include the cleaners who are employed by these companies. Now, go over to a website, fullfact.org, and they will try to tell you that the median salary for an RMT worker is $44,000, and that's because they do include the train drivers who they admit most are not on strike, but then they don't include the poorly paid cleaners. So what's the point in calling yourself Full Fact, telling everybody you're independent, when basically you're just biased and giving out a number that doesn't refer to reality? How ridiculous. They claim to be independent fact checkers. And we're going to talk a little bit more about independent in a moment. Andrew Haines, currently the boss of Network Rail, earns £588,000 per annum. But he got an 8.1% pay increase in 2022 from 544,000. Now that's a difference of 44,000. Interestingly, the same amount that fullfact.org stated was the median wage for an RMT worker, which of course isn't reality because we know it's 31 to 32 because Full Fact don't give you the full facts. It's also interesting that some people, Mrs. Sunak, pay £30,000 for non-dom status because that's obviously a lot cheaper than actually paying any tax. And we just said that the median wage for a RMT worker is £31,000 to £32,000. That's about the same amount, isn't it? A while back, of course, the nurses were the heroes of the piece, and everybody was encouraged to get out there and clap, 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 and wow, and then everybody was saying how they deserved better wages and better conditions. Now it seems they're beginning to be the villains. Well, after all, are they represented by the Independent Review Board for their pay? Well, let's have a look, because here we are on that word again, independent.
We are actually listening to the independent pay review bodies.
Well, the first thing this independent body is actually told by the government to an independent body, so they're not that independent after all, is that they must take things into consideration, such as the NHS budget, and they must work within the predicted government inflation guidelines. So not that independent really. They haven't really got nurses' best interests at heart after all. They're told what to do. So their hands are tied from day one. Call it what you like. If it smells like and it tastes like, then it is. Sunak, of course, wants anti-strike laws being brought in as soon as possible. There's pretty draconian measures really, back to the days when management were able to tell the worker exactly when, how and what they were going to do.
Well, it concerns me that the government, instead of trying to settle disputes with us and other important sections of the working class, are looking to legislate and take away people's civil rights, human rights, and even breach international law on the right to strike and the right to organise freely.
Talking of management doing exactly what they want, let's just roll back to that, right to the top of the video. 4,000 workers we were talking about. Elon Musk, seen as a bit of a hero. Well, he's no more than a thuggish bully, isn't he? Walked in, sacked 4,000 people. Now that wouldn't happen if the place had been unionised. This is the kind of management that I think some people against unions would like to see. But it's pretty toxic, isn't it? Just being able to meander in and tell people they no longer work there, completely ruin their life in seconds. Doesn't matter whether you've got a mortgage to pay, children, a family, whatever's going on in your life, you're done. As far as management is concerned, and let's just be a little bit honest with ourselves here. We all enjoy that 2-day weekend, don't we? Yes, we do. Well, thanks to unions, we do anyway. And if you're not really very well, you enjoy a bit of sick pay. Yes, you do. And when it comes to maternity pay, that's nice, isn't it? Well, thanks to the unions. They did a lot more for us as well. We shouldn't be giving in to this toxic management approach of Rishi Sunak. It allows for rich people, i.e. Mrs. Sunak, to just simply pay a small amount of money to not pay any tax and then tell everybody, well, there's no money to be given to you. Meantime, sending, what is it, £1 billion worth of armaments to Ukraine, spending £1 billion on migrants coming across the channel so we can house them, so we can feed them, so we can allow them to access the NHS, which is struggling, and the nurses are on strike. Pretty ununderstandable, really, what's going on, and they're encouraging the workers to be divided. Please do not be divided, support the unions, and let's force the government to do the right thing. Get round the negotiating table now.
What you might want to know, and others might want to know, is that the companies are losing no money during this dispute. The government is taking all of the losses themselves. We believe it's in excess of £320 million that they've subsidised this strike for. That would be more than enough to settle this dispute.
Thanks for watching. I hope you found that informative, and please like and comment. I would love to hear your comments below. Do subscribe to the channel and check out the rest of the content. I will see you on the next video.